Some people don't go quiet because they have nothing to say. They go quiet because the last time they said something, it cost them more than they could afford to lose. You know this silence. You've felt it, or you've witnessed it. It's the silence that follows disappointment, misunderstanding. The moment you realize that no matter how clearly you explain yourself, nothing changes. From the outside, it looks like someone checking out, pulling away, not caring anymore. But that's not what's happening at all. This kind of silence isn't empty. It's a shield. Somewhere along the way, opening up stopped leading to connection. Instead, it led to confusion, arguments, being dismissed or misunderstood in ways that felt impossible to correct. Their words got twisted, their feelings got minimized, and vulnerability, something that's supposed to bring people closer, started working against them. So their mind quietly learned a new rule, saying nothing hurts less than being misunderstood. And that's how silence becomes a strategy, not a dramatic shutdown, not a conscious decision to punish anyone, just a quiet, practical adjustment, a way to avoid the emotional crash, a way to stay steady when everything around them feels unsafe. Here's where most people get it wrong. They think silence equals not caring, not feeling, not being affected. But silence is rarely about absence. It's about memory. The body remembering what happened the last time someone offered their truth and it wasn't handled with care. Silence isn't coldness. It's not weakness. It's intelligence learned the hard way, a nervous system that chose protection over exposure. In this video, we're going to look at what's really happening inside people who withdraw emotionally, not because they want to disappear, but because at some point, staying quiet became the only way to survive. The question isn't why do some people go silent? The real question is, what did they learn would happen if they didn't? No one starts out believing their voice doesn't matter. That belief gets planted slowly, in moments that might seem small to an outsider but feel enormous to the person living them. It starts when you try to express yourself and it doesn't land. You say, "That hurt me," and someone tells you you're being too sensitive. You share something confusing or painful and it gets brushed off. You speak honestly, and instead of curiosity, you're met with defensiveness, dismissal, or worse, silence in return. Over time, a pattern starts to form. Every time you try to speak, there's a cost. You expose yourself emotionally, but there's no safety net. You're vulnerable, but there's no repair. And eventually, your mind does what minds do. It adapts. If speaking up creates tension or rejection, maybe staying quiet is the safer choice. This is how silence becomes learned behavior. Not avoidance, adaptation. It often starts early. In families where emotions were inconvenient. In relationships where having needs made you a burden. In environments where being easy was valued more than being honest. The lesson isn't spoken out loud. It's taught through outcomes. And once it settles into your body, silence stops feeling like you're holding something back. It starts feeling like stability, like control, like the least painful path forward. What looks like withdrawal in adulthood is often just an echo of the moment when being open didn't bring closeness, and going quiet became the only way to stay whole. Psychologists call this pattern emotional withdrawal. But don't let the clinical term fool you. This isn't about being cold or detached. Emotional withdrawal happens when connection has become unpredictable, when closeness starts to feel conditional, when expressing yourself feels too risky. It's your mind and body taking a step back, not because you don't want connection, but because you've stopped trusting it to be safe. Some people withdraw temporarily. They step back to regulate themselves, to think things through, to calm down before they re-engage. That's healthy. That's intentional. But emotional withdrawal becomes something else when it turns chronic. It stops being a pause and becomes a permanent position. You're not just stepping back from a single conversation anymore. You're stepping back from expectation, from hope, from the belief that being understood is even possible. Over time, withdrawal stops being something you do. It becomes something you are. And here's where people misread the situation. From the outside, it looks like emotional distance. Like someone who doesn't care. But internally, the emotional system is often running at full capacity. Thoughts racing, feelings intense, replaying scenarios over and over. The person is deeply engaged, they're just not showing it outwardly, because at some point showing it started to cost too much. Emotional withdrawal isn't about having no emotions. It's about holding your emotions so carefully that no one can mishandle them. This is why telling someone to just open up almost never works. Withdrawal isn't stubbornness. It's a protective wall built around something sensitive, something that learned early on that closeness without safety hurts more than distance ever could. For many people who go quiet, it's not a decision the mind makes. It's a response the body initiates. Most people know about fight or flight, the survival responses that kick in when we feel threatened. But there's a third response that doesn't get talked about nearly enough: freeze. Freeze happens when your system detects danger but doesn't see a clear way to escape or fight back. Your body goes still. Your energy turns inward. Speech becomes difficult, not because you have nothing to say, but because saying it feels unsafe on a physiological level. This is why so many people describe the exact same experience. They know what they're feeling. They can name it perfectly in their head. But the second they try to speak, something shuts down. Their throat tightens. The words disappear. That's not immaturity. It's not avoidance. It's your nervous system choosing survival over expression. And here's what most people don't realize. Freeze doesn't just happen in life or death situations. It can be learned in relationships. Chronic misunderstanding, emotional unpredictability, repeated dismissal. All of these can train your nervous system to treat communication itself as a threat. So when silence shows up, it's not apathy, it's regulation. Your body remembering what happened last time you were honest without protection, and deciding that quiet is the safest place to land right now. Here's something most people never realize. The inside of a quiet person is rarely quiet at all. Silence doesn't mean nothing is happening. It usually means everything is happening, just internally. These are people with constant inner dialogue. They replay conversations long after they're over. They analyze tone, timing, intent. Their emotional world is active, layered, and exhausting. They don't avoid their feelings. They process them alone. Inside, there are full explanations being rehearsed, emotions being named, connections being drawn. They understand their own experience with surprising clarity. But clarity on the inside doesn't always translate to expression on the outside. Because speaking requires more than just understanding. It requires safety. When your inner world becomes the only place your feelings are allowed to exist, it gets louder over time. Thoughts pile up. Emotions loop. There's no release. No shared regulation. Everything has to be carried, processed, and contained by you alone. This is why quiet people are so often misunderstood as distant or disengaged. From the outside, they look calm, composed, hard to read. But on the inside, they might be holding entire conversations that never make it into the room. Living with a loud inner world and a silent outer one creates real tension. Not because you lack emotional intelligence, but because your emotional intelligence has nowhere safe to go. Silence, in this case, isn't emptiness. It's compression. A life lived inwardly, not by choice, but by necessity. For someone who's learned to go quiet, silence isn't just neutral. It feels safer, not because it's comfortable, but because being misunderstood is painful in a very particular way. Being misunderstood doesn't just twist your words. It twists who you are. Your intentions get rewritten. Your emotions get reframed. Over time, that creates a quiet calculation. If I speak, I risk being twisted into something I'm not. If I stay silent, at least I won't be misread. Silence becomes a form of control. A way to protect your inner reality from being mishandled by people who don't know how to hold it carefully. And here's the paradox. Silence protects you from conflict, but it also protects you from connection. By staying quiet, you avoid the arguments, the emotional exhaustion, the endless loop of trying to explain yourself, but you also give up the chance to be fully known. You trade the risk of being misunderstood for the certainty of being unseen. At first, that trade feels worth it, because the pain of invisibility is quieter than the pain of being misrepresented. But safety built on silence is fragile. It keeps you regulated, but it also keeps you isolated. What started as self-protection slowly becomes self-limitation, and silence felt safer, until one day, it starts to feel like the only option you have left. What keeps you safe at first doesn't always keep you free. Silence starts as protection, a way to avoid harm, misunderstanding, unnecessary conflict. But when it becomes your default, something subtle begins to shift. At first, the costs are easy to miss. You feel more regulated, more stable. Quiet feels clean, manageable, but slowly, the consequences start to add up. Connection thins. Conversations stay on the surface. People interact with a version of you that never fully shows up. And over time, a strange kind of loneliness settles in, not because you're alone, but because no one truly knows you. The walls that keep pain out also keep intimacy out. Your needs go unspoken. Resentment builds, and because it has nowhere to go, it turns inward. And maybe the hardest part? The longer the silence lasts, the harder it becomes to break. Expression starts to feel foreign. Vulnerability feels dangerous. Even when safe people show up, your system doesn't automatically recognize safety. It recognizes habit. What once protected you now confines you. Not dramatically, not suddenly, but quietly. The walls you built weren't meant to be permanent. But without awareness, survival strategies can outlive the danger they were designed for. Leaving you protected, yes, but increasingly alone. Healing doesn't start by forcing yourself to speak. For someone who learned to survive through silence, the goal isn't to suddenly become louder or emotionally vulnerable overnight. That kind of pressure just recreates the conditions that made silence necessary in the first place. Silence isn't the problem. Unsafety is. What needs to change isn't your personality. It's the environment around your expression. When silence formed, it was because your words weren't met with care. So healing doesn't start by abandoning the quiet. It starts by redefining when and where quiet is no longer necessary. Safety in this context is specific. It's being listened to without being corrected. It's curiosity instead of defensiveness. It's space to speak without being rushed or reinterpreted. And safety doesn't arrive all at once. It shows up in small moments. A response that doesn't escalate. A question asked without an agenda. A pause that holds space. Over time, your nervous system starts to update its expectations. Expression stops equaling threat. Being seen stops automatically leading to harm. This is where silence begins to shift. Not from shutdown to full exposure, but from reflex to choice. You start to notice when you're quiet because you want to be, and when you're quiet because you're afraid to speak. And that awareness alone creates space. Not pressure to perform vulnerability, but permission to test connection gradually, on your own terms. Silence doesn't need to disappear for healing to happen. It just needs somewhere safe to soften. If you recognized yourself in any of this, in the silence, the withdrawal, the careful holding back, there's something you need to hear. You're not broken. You didn't miss some crucial lesson everyone else learned. You adapted. What looks like distance today is often just the residue of intelligence under pressure. A system that figured out how to survive when connection didn't feel safe. And survival, even when it costs you something later, is never a failure. This isn't an invitation to suddenly start speaking more. It's an invitation to feel less alone in the quiet. Connection doesn't start with explaining everything you've ever felt. It starts when your experience is understood without being argued with. When your silence is respected, not interrogated. Those spaces exist, even if you haven't found them yet. If this video helped you feel seen, even a little, I hope you'll stay. Consider subscribing if you want more reflections on silence, self-protection, and emotional healing. We talk about the parts of being human that don't shout, but still matter deeply. And if any part of this resonated with you, share your experience in the comments. Not to be fixed, not to be judged, but to be witnessed. Because connection doesn't always start with words. Sometimes it starts with simply knowing you're not the only one who learned to stay quiet to survive.